So I'm a board certified psychiatrist and I've helped over 200 PMHNPs gain clinical confidence in their psychiatric diagnosis skills, treatment skills, and helping their patients get better results. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing how you can get patients into your private practice. So a lot of PMHNPs that I work with either already have their private practices, A, or B, they want their own practice, but they're unsure of how to start and they're unsure of how to get patients. And this is an important thing because if you're not able to get patients, you don't have a practice. You can do all the LLC, all the business type of stuff, all the marketing, like whatever you want to do, get an office, get malpractice. But if you can't get patients into the door, you have no revenue. And if you have no revenue, then you have no business. So I'm going to share exactly how I was able to get patients into my private practice. So I've had a part-time private practice for 2 years now, and I've generated over $150,000 in income doing that part-time whilst working a full-time job before, and then now doing my NP coaching, which is what I do full-time. But I still have built my own private practice. So I want to share with you the 9 methods that I used to be able to build my practice and to get patients into the door and to stay. So we're going to start with number 9. So number 9 is Psychology Today. So I'm sure that you've heard of Psychology Today. Pretty much every therapist, mental health professional is on this platform. So it's good because it has that branding and it has that visibility. And the nice thing is also $29 a month, so super cheap. But the downside with Psychology Today is because it's so accessible, it means that everyone is accessing it. So every single provider that's pretty much out there, they have a Psychology Today. So, let's say you're in, for example, I'm in Manhattan. So if I put down any Manhattan zip code, there's so many providers that are in the area that my account doesn't really stand out from anyone else's. So it's hard for me to get a lot of traction there. There's a couple things that you can do to mitigate that. 1, you can pick a zip code that's not as populated. 2, you can pick a zip code that's higher up in socioeconomic status, but not as populated. So I've had people who, especially if you have a virtual practice, it doesn't matter what zip code you put in for there. So you just pick an area that has a good socioeconomic status, but is relatively not less population dense, and that's a good way to stand out. Or 3, just recognize that with the $30 a month, you're probably not going to get that many leads. For example, I've probably gotten maybe 10 or so leads from there in my entire lifetime. But it's only $30 a month, which means that over the year, it's $360. So if you get 1 patient from it, that pretty much just covers the cost of your intake, and then everything else is gravy on top. So that's the advantage of it. And it also gives you a little bit of branding boost. So if someone searches your name, especially if you don't have any kind of digital presence, then at least if you have a Psychology Today, you have something. So that's that. And this one it's nice because it's so easy to set up. You can just do that. So number 8 are blogs. So back when I was starting my practice, I was focusing in on the young men's niche, like young men's self-improvement, helping guys with confidence, failure to launch, that kind of thing. And so I was writing blog articles to target that population. So because the way that it works is, let's say you have a website and you don't have that much content on it. Google doesn't really know how and where to show your website to. But now let's say you start putting blog articles on that website. For me, since I was putting it on young men's issues, so now let's say I have a mom who's searching, my son has depression, for example, then she might come across one of my blog articles on that. And now she sees my website and then she can go through that and then see if I'm a good fit to work with her. So then I also had articles on like weightlifting, I had articles on building confidence, on gaming. But then the problem with blogs nowadays is that there's more mediums out there that you can create more of a personal connection with the audience. And so I'll share that as we get along this. But also the fact that now AI is out, the quantity of blogs is ever increasing and their quality is ever decreasing. So it's even harder to stand out now compared to 10 years ago with blog articles because social media has taken over the rise and there's a lot of shitty blog articles that people can pump out. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it, but I wouldn't put all your eggs in the blog basket. If you're able to put out some content, even if you use AI and you edit it, that content, the whole purpose of that is to get you ranked on the SEO, search engine optimization, so that way Google can help you get patients for, or direct patients to your private practice. If you have a niche that will help more, like let's say your blog is just on general anxiety or depression, then you're probably not going to stand out that much. But let's say you have like an LGBTQ niche, maybe for like gamers. Let's say you help professionals, entrepreneurs, postpartum, women's issues, all that kind of stuff. Then your stuff can stand out a little bit more and help you attract the right client that you want. Because if you're able to attract the right type of patient, the right type of client, then those clients and patients will pay more than the average person will either. And thus your practice will thrive more. So that's 8. So number 7 is Zocdoc. So Zocdoc is interesting. It's a very double-edged sword. So when I got started with my practice, Zocdoc, it was hard for me to get patients. And so Zocdoc was one of the things that really gave me confidence because it got me patients quickly. The problem was that a lot of those patients were not good. Either they wanted stimulants or benzos, or like I had one guy who was an uncontrolled schizophrenic. So like he was not a good fit for my practice, outpatient telehealth. I've had patients who've maybe did the first visit and then they stopped after that. Patients who, and this is the most part, they want an insurance provider, but then they don't see that I'm not insurance, and then I'm booking with me, and then later realize that, oh crap, this guy actually takes insurance or doesn't take insurance. But the biggest problem with Zocdoc is that they charge you per intake. So every lead that you get, they'll charge you $70 for. So let's say they get you 5 leads. Well, only one of those leads may actually turn out to be a good lead. The rest may all just be a waste of time. So then you got to call through and figure out, okay, who's a waste of time and who's not. And but they'll still charge you per lead. Now there's a little loop around where if you do it in 24 hours, then if the patient cancels in 24 hours, then they won't charge you for the lead. But you have to call the patient immediately as soon as the lead comes in, and then tell the patient that, hey, we need you to cancel. So that's the only loophole. Otherwise, it's going to charge the provider. So this was helpful for me for the initial journey to get patients. But then as I started using some of the more methods down below, I relied on Zocdoc less and less because I didn't see the ROI in it. Number 6 is ads. So I used ads, I used Google ads and I did a little bit of Facebook ads. So Google, FB/Meta. And this is definitely an avenue that you can go down to, is the ads. Don't get me wrong, it's a great avenue. So for me, I used Google ads for a couple months. The problem that I ran into was that with Google ads, you have to track exactly what you're doing. So you have to track your daily spend, how many hits you're getting, because then you know how to adjust your. It's not like this, okay, you just send an ad and it's done. An ad has specific features. It's got copy, which is the text of it. It's got different targeting, and ads have to constantly be tried and refreshed and tested to find out the right ad for you. All the while you're burning money, $20, $30, $40, $50 a day. And that's like on the cheaper end. You can obviously go more and more and more. So the ad budget can rack up quite quickly. And I was not an expert at ads by any means. I tried Facebook ads for a little bit too, but then I was running into the same problem that I ran into Zocdoc. I was getting pretty low quality leads and I couldn't just keep on calling all of them. And then similar with Google, I found it was a lot of maintenance and a lot of expense. So I did get some patients from ads, but eventually I stopped doing it. Okay, and then number 5, we have Headway. So you may have heard of these sites, Headway, Alma, and basically what they do is they help you become an insurance accepting provider. So you give out, or you let them handle all the insurance aspects, the credentialing, the billing. And so all you need to do is focus in on just seeing the patient, and they take care of all the insurance headache. So it's a nice draw for a lot of providers if they just want to run their own practices without the insurance side of things meddling too much. For me, I knew I wanted to be off of insurance panels. I wanted to do longer visits. I wanted to do more integrative care, like I do supplements, I do therapy, coaching as well. So for that, I knew I wanted to go outside of the insurance realm, and that way I can choose the prices that I charge and not just be limited to whatever insurance wants to pay me. And so that's why I decided to not do Headway, because once you're credentialed with an insurance company, it's relatively easy to credential. But I've heard nightmare stories that it's relatively hard to credential or to decredential. So then let's say now you want to do your own private practice, not accepting insurance. You can't charge someone cash prices if they already have insurance and you accept their insurance, because then let's say they try to file an out of network bill. The insurance company is not going to respect that or pay them, because they're going to be like, okay, that provider's in network, so they should be charging you in network. They shouldn't have charged you whatever their cash price was. So that's the disadvantage of doing a Headway practice. But if you just want to set up a quick practice, you want to see patients, and then you're done for the day, you're not trying to understand business and scale it or anything, perfectly fine avenue to go down. So then number 4, you have events. So events can be helpful because they can cement you as an expert in whatever area that you're doing. So for example, at my last practice, the practice would do brain scans, like that was their big draw. And so in that practice, the clinics would host regular events like once every couple months, so that way community partners could come in, therapists could come in, other mental health professionals could come in, people in the industry, patients, like that kind of thing. They could check out the brain scan machine, meet all the clinicians, etc. And so the nice part about what I observed in that is that made us the authority in that area, and we gave value. They would ask us to give talks to different therapy offices and things. And so because we were doing that, our names would get out there, and then people would associate us with, okay, they're the brain scan practice. And then they would send their patients to our practice. So similarly, you can do this whatever niche you have too. Let's say you do LGBTQ. Well, you could speak at a conference. You could have your own kind of event there. You could go to some online meetups, conferences, whatever. So the whole point with the events is that you're giving expertise for the event. So that's the key. So for example, Dr. K, he is someone who works a lot with gamers. And so he has been shown to like do a lot of Twitch events. So he'll go to TwitchCon and then he'll speak at Twitch events because he's a streamer, right? So he works with that gaming audience. So he goes to where the gamers are at a Twitch conference, for example. So if you're able to either host your own events or find events that really correlate with your niche, your type of practice, then that could be helpful. I used to go to a lot of mental health organization events in our city. There was a residential place called Newport Academy, and so they would host these events, and I would go there for, meeting people. And so that leads me to my third one, which is networking. Now, networking becomes very helpful because then it becomes like a person-to-person referral. So one of the NPs that I'm working with, she's in our coaching program. So what she told me was that how she got started with her practice was she reached out to a whole bunch of therapists. Like she went to therapist Facebook groups, she connected with them, and now people will send her clients from their therapy practice. So that's super helpful because now she said, oh, she filled up her whole practice that way. And that made networking really powerful because then those were coming from trusted people. Networking can also help you get new opportunities. So it could help you, for example, find some events here. With networking, you can connect with the right type of person who can help you. Therapists are helpful. Other providers are helpful. Primary care doctors, PCPs, that can also be a good one too, because these people, they'll have such an influx of psychiatric patients who need psychiatric services that networking can really take you far. For me, I started going more towards some of the later strategies here, just because I found it was too much effort for me to network when the other strategies were working well. You have to drive to the event, you have to meet the people, then you have to send follow-up emails, and then you have to maintain those relationships because otherwise they forget about you. Something I found really helpful if you're networking is that if you have a specific niche that you're known for, then people will remember you a lot better than if you're just a generic provider. For example, so I would meet a lot of therapists, and so I would always think of, okay, who are clients that I can send to these therapists that I meet? And a lot of them that I would meet, I would forget about them because I would meet so many. But then I remember meeting this one girl and she said, okay, she does DBT, dialectical behavior therapy for adolescents and for their parents. So I was like, sweet. So as a child psychiatrist, now whenever a case like that would come up, I would think of her because she was the case to, she was the person who like specialized in that area. Everyone else was just like, oh yeah, I'm a general therapist. So the point is that if at these networking events, if you're able to convey a specific niche, then that will help you quite a bit. Now, number two. So number two is, and my favorite, social media slash content. So nowadays, I get the vast majority of my patients through social media and content. So for my TikTok channel, some for my Instagram, and then YouTube as well. So the reason is because just like now you're listening to me, other patients get to listen to me too. They get to understand me, they get to see my vibe. And so immediately they can see or kind of intuit whether or not I would be a good fit for that patient. And so imagine like when all these other methods, right? Like Psychology Today, blog, Zocdoc, they don't, all they see is just a profile picture, maybe a couple paragraphs, and that's it. Whereas here, you get minutes and hours of my content. So all my YouTube videos 10 minutes long and you can watch them to get hours of content. I do live streams on TikTok where I'll stream for multiple hours a day. So because of this, the audience really gets to get that sense that they know me. And so then when they decide to see me, I don't really need to do any convincing of my value. And I noticed this, in fact, when I was working at different practices, was that patients wouldn't know anything who I was. I was be a blank slate. So it's almost like they still haven't bought into me. So I have to show them that, okay, I'm going to be a excellent provider for them, right? Like I almost have to convince them of that fact. Whereas with the social media and content, they've already kind of bought in. At my last job, the guy who runs it, he had bought, or he has a bunch of books out. So because he has a bunch of books, people would find him from his books, from podcasts, etc. And then, as the doctors in the practice, like we would see the patients. But the marketing came from that. So these patients were willing to spend a lot of money to come to this specific practice instead of any other practice that's out there because of social media and content. So this is the one that I'm the most passionate about. It's the one that I've gone all in. And I think right now is the golden opportunity for all of us to be on social media. There's a lot of fitness influencers and stuff out there, but there's not a lot of mental health people online. So now is really the opportunity to get out there and just make a name for yourself. And you don't need to have hundreds of thousands of followers. Like if you have like even a couple thousand, that's more than enough to sustain a practice. If those followers are good, high quality followers who are interested in your stuff, it's more than enough. And then lastly, number one, and this one's by far the most important, referrals. So referrals are super, super key because we know that ads are trying to sell us. We know that social media, we don't have a relationship with them. We know that they probably are trying to sell us something as well too, right? Which is part of the game, nothing wrong with that. But with referrals, this is when our current patients will refer other patients over. And that by far is the best. And so, or just in general, for example, I met this, I have a friend here in the city. He does real estate. And anyway, their firm, they have a real estate lawyer working for them. And so I remember I had a consult request from a real estate or from a lawyer and in New York. And so I called them and they were like, yeah, my friend, your friend recommended him or recommended me to the patient. And so she was immediately down to pay whatever my fees were to see me without any kind of issue, without any kind of convincing. And I charge more than most psychiatrists do. But because it was a referral, she was more than happy to pay for that. Similarly, my patients, I've had patients refer their spouses, they refer their friends and family, and they've never had any problem paying because it's that trust. In the referral, there's built trust. So what this means for us practically is making sure that we provide the highest quality of service that we can, because if we do that, then the referral is a lot more likely to sign up with us. And so that's why this is the way that I rank the listing, with starting with some of the more over the top kind of top of funnel stuff, which might be helpful in a general sense, but not specifically, and then getting down to more of the specific strategies. So this is 9 ways on how to get patients into your private practice. And so if you're a PMHNP and you want to learn how to do this further, I recommend joining our PMHNP coaching program. We've had over 200 students go in it so far, and that's where I teach clinical confidence, basically teach psychiatric diagnoses, pharmacology, um, lab studies, integrative psych, basically all the stuff that I've learned through residence and fellowship to you. And I'm expanding our content to cover how to start and maintain your own private practice as well. So yeah, that's all in the coaching program. So you can check that out, and I'll see you in the next video.